Well, hey there, it's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol. That's wavetables.lol, home of KRC Mathwaves, the world's largest collection of, what is it? Wavetables, single cycle waveforms, and even some samples for all sorts of modern synthesizers, including to an extent our new friend Omnisphere 3 from Spectrasonics. Um, I have a deep and abiding love for Omnisphere. And I could just jam on it all the time. Well, we missed a chord because I'm thinking and talking and trying to do other things. We will try to play while I'm talking about it. Unlike some other folks who have been doing very broad overviews of Omnisphere 3. Oh, that's fun. Someone's going to turn this into a song, and it's going to be like a big hit, and it's just going to be this patch. There's going to be lots of different types of faces. We're going to have BPM face. We're going to have filter face. I don't know. We'll have all sorts of funny faces in this video. Unlike some other people, I want to take a look at the synthesis engine because I know, and the history of the synth, because I know a lot of people are wondering who did not, kind of come up in either sound design or electronic music production or music recording in general. What's the big deal about Omnisphere? And I want to talk about that, and then I want to look at the synthesis architecture and some of the new interesting things that are in Omnisphere 3. It's really pretty lovely, and I realized last week when the preview video from Spectrasonics, the launch video for Omnisphere 3 came out, that I hadn't really opened Omnisphere 2 in a while. And so I opened and updated Omnisphere 2 and discovered that I don't have my patch library from Omnisphere 2 on this machine. I must have hundreds of patches that I did in Omnisphere 2, including some crazy explorations. So what you can do with user imported samples and things like that. But I was like, okay, well, we'll just approach it with fresh eyes, right? So a little bit of history. Let's go back in time. And first, Keith, get let's I don't know. We could just, oops, I didn't want to okay. Shoot. Should we just we're browsing the entire library right now. But I should just pull up something that I can be playing in the background, right? Let's see here. Let's go to one thing I think that's super great is there's all these new libraries that are in Omnisphere. Oh, let's do some ARP and belltone stuff from the analog vibes section, shall we? Oh, that's nice. Okay. This is good talking music. This is good talking sounds, right? Very pretty. But let's go back in time to the time before Omnisphere. So in terms of synthesis, if we go back to 1997, there was a movement afoot where people were a little tired of samples, right? And the romplers, because synthesizers had become digital. And the dominant synthesizers of the late 90s were romplers. Now, romplers were very interesting because sampling was expensive. I was already on the hardware sampler kick at that point. But around 1997, the Nord Modular gets introduced, and it was marketed as a synth that's is not powered by samples. and like has kind of anything modular synthesis, right? And analog modular synthesis at that time was extremely expensive, and so Nord Modular like opened like new worlds to people in the world of computer music if you wanted to go there. And so I was on that train, and I did hundreds of patches for the Nord Modular, and there was a very active community like sharing patches on the early interweb. But then I did rediscover the joy of sampling, I guess you would say, as hardware samplers became more capable, and then also as computers became more capable of playing sampled sound. And so at Spectrasonics, their first, the kind of the version, the original version of Omnisphere is a plugin called Atmosphere. And Atmosphere was, I think, billed as like a dream synth, and Spectrasonics meant that in two ways. Like one, it was very dreamy and ethereal and had pads, and that comes out in 2002, along with their other plugin, which was dedicated to bass, that was called Trilogy. And neither of those caught my attention at the time. I was still, kind of in sampler world. And so moving on to like 2008, I guess I want to say 2004. So Emulator X comes out, and I had a hardware E4, which I still have and still dearly love. It's not the controller that I'm using right now. I'm using a Korg multi-poly, because the E4K keyboard was like this 76 key monstrosity, built like a tank. It takes up, I think it might be wider than the room I'm actually in, where I do my little plugin recordings. But anyway, I was doing a lot of stuff with Emulator X from 2004 to 2006 when X2 comes out, and then X3, which is the last of the emulator series synths, comes out in 2009. In between that time, Stylus RMX came out that's in like 2004. Really cool, like drum synthesizer. Not really a drum synthesizer. It's like a drum sample player. It's like the pinnacle. I have it open. It's the pinnacle of what would you say? That kind of propeller heads. What is it? What was it called? Wait, the slicing software. What was that called? Why am I having a brain fart? Let's listen to a groove from Stylus RMX. This is another Spectrasonics product that you can't buy anymore, which is kind of weird. But it still works great with Omnisphere. Well, I'm all over the place, aren't I? So anyway, so Stylus comes out. That got me really interested in Spectrasonics. And like, I think as soon as you're on the Spectrasonics bandwagon, you're like, well, these guys can't really do any wrong. So 4 years later, version 1 of Omnisphere comes out, and it's insane. Like, so for the time, an extremely powerful and good sounding synth, which it still is. But that caught my imagination. And so I have been in Omnisphere world since the original launch of Omnisphere 1. Then a year later, Trillion comes out, which was it still is, it's a version of Omnisphere that's basically dedicated, I'm just trying to get there, that's dedicated to bass. And so Trillion, one of the things that was really interesting to me is it had an awesome, like, multi-sampled acoustic bass. Let's use the acoustic. I should probably be, and this should be like over here maybe. this is in the wrong place. What's this? Yeah. I mean, listen to that. So it was dedicated bass, had all these great like acoustic and electric basses, and then like synthetic basses and things like that. Um, Super nice. Let's see here. Let's grab something else. Oh yeah. Okay. ARP and BPM. Oh, all right. That's pretty cool. All right. So anyway, Trillion was a great add-on for Omnisphere. I think some of those sounds have come up into Omnisphere 3, but you can still get that add-on. I skipped the Keyscape add-on, and then Omnisphere continued to evolve. We got Omnisphere 2.5 in 2018. It contained like a high-res interface. The Granular engine debuted then, and a bunch of other neat features. By the way, Omnisphere is not just about these BPM and ARP patches, but they're fun to play while I'm trying to talk. Um, so you know, so that's sort of the software history, I guess. Um, by the time that Omnisphere came out, it was like people were sort of ready to explore sampling again, and it was time for like kind of a modern rompler. And so Omnisphere is a synth, and Spectrasonics marketing and their documentation reinforce this. But it's a synth that comes with a great sample library. So, like, if you were to ask me the question, like, is Omnisphere 3 worth it in 2025? I would say yes, but you should think about it this way. It's like an extremely deep and powerful synthesizer, software synthesizer, right? That's opinionated. What did I want to say? What's the other word I would call it? It's opinionated. Oh, and it's deliberate. It is for both the casual user as well as the dedicated like sound designer. Like you can do very, very deep and complex things with it that remind me of what you would do on hardware synths, both back in the day and also today, right? Because it has like smart built-in modulation routings, and then it has a very flexible mod matrix that doesn't really work like a mod matrix. There's not a matrix, so to speak. It's more like right-clicking and stuff. And we'll get to there when we look at the synth architecture. But it really appeals to me. So, like, I would say, if you like the kinds of things that I do, you're a fan of my channel or you're a fan of KRC Mathwaves, and heck, maybe you've even sprung for my first plugin, Liminal Space, which we'll get to that too. Then I think you would enjoy Omnisphere. The other thing that's really important about it is that, so Eric Persing, the man behind Spectrasonics, so in the 90s, he was the head of sound design for Roland. And he's the person responsible for many, many of the famous patches that come from Roland synths of the 80s and 90s. Like, he's the inventor of the Hoover sound. Well, there's probably a Hoover in here somewhere, right? Let's try to find a Hoover real quick. There's got to be a Hoover. Let's do view all. There's probably multiple Hoovers. Do all Omnisphere. And let's just search for, do I have to go all? Category all? Okay, category all. And then we'll search. Let's search Hoover. Let's just do that. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Like and subscribe for more Talky synthesizer content. Is it still searching? Where are all these Hoovers? Oh, They might be. That's pretty. I don't know if that's really is that a Hoover? Anyway, like and subscribe for more Talky synthesizer content. Majestic. There's just so much. Here we go. Hoover for lady. What does that mean? Oh, yeah. There's a little info pane. Powerful classic Hoover sound useful for dance and electronica tracks. Use the mod wheel to convert it into a rhythmic sound. Oh. Shoot, that's a hit. Hoover number 5. Oh, I didn't mean to rate you. Sorry, Hoover number 5. I don't know how to undo it. How do you oh hell. I'll just rate it 5. Oh. Anyway, so Eric Persing was the man behind the Hoover digital native dance, a bunch of other things. And when he was at Roland, oh, there'll be links in the description to source articles for this. When he was at Roland, he realized that with sampling, coming up as something that was going to be more and more possible, with computers and new dedicated hardware platforms, he wanted to develop more soundware, specifically samples. And Roland didn't really cotton to it so much. So he actually started Spectrasonics and his sample libraries back in that time, and started selling them independently. And remember, like this is the era of like CD-ROM and even audio CDs. And he developed a huge, for the time, and still for this time, a huge volume of really excellent sampled content that was in like I want to call them CD-ROM collections, but they're like sample collections, like Atmosphere, the library that went into the Atmosphere synth, a very famous collection called Distorted Reality, which had very, very creative sampling techniques combined with all sorts of analog and digital processing, collections of vocal samples like Symphony of Voices and Vocal Planet that are still iconic and still useful as source content because they can be transformed in so many different ways. He did a library called Hans Zimmer Guitars. Did people say Hans or Hans? Anyway, Hans Zimmer Guitars, Hans Zimmer Guitars. And his very first product, Eric Persing's, was called Bass Legends. That was samples of various bass instruments that were played by like the most awesome session players of the time. And then more creative stuff like Bizarre Guitar, and then collections of ethnic instruments like Heart of Africa and Heart of Asia. So all of that content is now available in Omnisphere. And that is kind of how Omnisphere started. So the first version of Omnisphere contained all that stuff. And, today it's not unusual actually to see soundware developers actually have a vehicle for delivering them, right? So like if you think about SoundPaint, which I love, like that's Troll's, Fullman's way of distributing his sample libraries, right? And the libraries that he repurposed from 8DO, his previous company, right? I guess Contact is a little bit like that, but Contact's sort of fallen off. So all of that amazing content, and then a whole bunch of other content that Eric and his team have sampled over the years is delivered in Omnisphere. So like for $479 or whatever it is new, you can think of it as like think of it like a $200 synthesizer and a $270 sound library. And it's an incredible sound library. Like, you could easily spend, nickel and dime yourself, $50 here, $100 there, $30 there for very specific, like modern, sound libraries that are, say, dedicated to a single instrument or like a single theme. But Omnisphere covers a whole bunch of bases, right? For really it's like $200. And then the other part of the product I would say is, the 250 maybe, 250 and then the 200 for the synth itself. And it is a very deep and powerful synth engine that really floats my boat. With a lot of synths that I've reviewed on the channel, let's maybe get out of Hoover territory, right? And I'm sorry I'm so talky. Like and subscribe for more talky synthesizer content. I never realized how many Hoovers. Wow, that's pretty. Hoovers and Hoover-like things are in Omnisphere, but that's pretty cool. Ooh. Cool. I never realized how many Hoovers were in Omnisphere. Anyway, like there's tens of thousands of patches in it, and they're super great. But it's also very mostly enjoyable to use as a synthesis platform. And I guess we'll talk about that in our next segment. Boy, I went for a long time on this and the history of Omnisphere. But anyway, if you want the short review, it's like you should probably have this synth if you're into sound design, if you enjoy playing music. It's really worth it. And I would say, like, getting into it now is a great time to get into it because there is a bunch of really cool new content. We will take a look at some presets. We're going to take a look at some of the basic programming and synth architecture parts of Omnisphere 3 in my next segment. But I'm going to take a break and like have a cocktail and like calm down because I'm super excited. Okay, we'll talk to you in just a sec. Let's take a look at the synthesis engine in Omnisphere, which is, it's kind of what I do in my reviews of things. Let's see, where are the user directories? User. Okay, there we go. Let's pull up. This is a very typical sound that I would make on any synthesizer. A very beautiful sound. So this is your classic, swimmy saws kind of sound, and this is using the synth oscillators in Omnisphere 3 exclusively. So no sampled content, and some of the new filters. The new filters are great, by the way. Let's just get that out of the way. They are, in some ways, a vast improvement over the original filters in Omnisphere. I do like them a lot. This OB 12 dB per octave filter is very nice. And so let's just take a look at Omnisphere. So Omnisphere is not a very simple, like, one layer, two oscillator synth, like you'll commonly hear me say on this channel. Omnisphere is a 4-layer, kind of indeterminate number of oscillator synth. We'll get there. The 4-layer synth that has great effects, and effects are really part of the whole Omnisphere experience. And that continues to be true in Omnisphere 3. It has an extremely interesting and sophisticated arpeggiator. Do we dare just turn it on? I didn't design this patch to arpeggiate. Yeah, so that works. And it also has a multi-mode. So kind of like Stylus RMX did, it could host like 8 different parts and they could be like a whole percussive performance. Omnisphere carries that tradition on and has an 8-part like multi-system that you can use to do splits, You can use it to do very complex layered patches, or even things that are like entire little songs in that system. Today, we're going to focus mostly on the core synth architecture. But what we're hearing here is a two-layer patch that I think sounds really great. And let's take a look at the two different layers, one of which is really just a copy of the other. In layer A, which you could think of it as a part, think of it as a layer, think of it as a sound source. In A, we're using the synth oscillator, which is a wavetable oscillator, although Omnisphere 3 doesn't quite qualify as a modern wavetable synth from my perspective. It's mostly about using wavetables to get to specific oscillator shapes, even though they can be swept. So you can sweep the wavetables in Omnisphere, but you can't import them. And I do feel like maybe that's a forthcoming opportunity and not a missed opportunity. But, there are specific waveforms that I would love to be able to import to Omnisphere, like the polygonal, wavetables, and like I said, Morley wavetables, and even some of my even some of my machine learning based wavetables. I think those would be very interesting to explore here. But the shape of the oscillator comes from a wavetable, and you can see that I'm modulating it here slightly with an LFO. This is a JP8000 supersaw derived waveform, and let's talk about the interface a little bit. I know a lot of people feel, maybe some, maybe a lot, I don't know, feel that Omnisphere still has kind of an old school interface. It does lean into like the native things like combo boxes and stuff like that. You will often find like a lot of operations in Omnisphere are done through a right-click menu, and you'll see that this is not some kind of stylized menu. This is like the core Windows. I'm on a Windows machine. This is the core Windows like right-click menu. You'll also find so if I go to save a patch, right, it's going to pop the Windows native like file interface. I don't. I guess some people want things to look like a little different and like not disturb their flow, I guess, visually, by having like stylized components for everything. But you have to keep in mind that Omnisphere and its siblings come from the time before frameworks like Juice. And I am a plugin developer now. And when I developed my own first plugin, Liminal Space, the Haunted Digital Reverb, perfect for the spooky season. Go get it at wavetables.lol. Um, you know, I did my own combo boxes and stuff. Like we can look at that interface, right? Like, so, okay, this doesn't pop like the Windows combo box. This is like a custom combo box that comes from the graphics library that I used. But Omnisphere like doesn't do that. That just doesn't really bother me. Although there are some things that we'll probably see as I demo this that like kind of trip me up every now and then. Okay, so I don't really think the interface is outdated. It's a very, very deep synth, and so it leans into this idea of having like zoom windows. Okay, so if we were to go change this oscillator, like we could click into wave, and now we're in the oscillator zoom. Okay, and now we can see a whole bunch of parameters that weren't visible before, right? If we zoom back out, like look at things like analog, phase, and drift, like those aren't represented in this overall view of the voice, but they're there. And so you might say that Omnisphere like hides those things, but I don't really think it does. It's just like if you're in certain modes of working, like all you need to do is be working at this level. Like you don't need to dig in to all these options, but we'll see the method behind this madness. So, here's where we can select our waveform. again, so here's where I hope I'm not in the way. I should move this over maybe just a little bit more. You can see that when we go to select a new oscillator, we do get like the standard system dialogues. But you can see that there's a shit ton of wavetables and oscillators in here. These are all wavetable based. There's some new ones for EDM. I guess we could go and get some spectral ones. Let's see. Doesn't really sound that much different, this one. Oh, it does. There are presets. This is not really a preset. Sorry. I lost my place there for a second. Let's try getting some other wavetables here. Oh, there's a very aggressive square one. All right, but let's go back. Let's undo those changes. Let's go back to our original patch. Now, in Omnisphere 3, there is a new drift parameter. So there's this analog parameter that if it's above 0.4, which seems to be the default, if it's above 0.4, it starts to affect pitch drift. If it's below 0.4, it affects like phase drift. So if you want like a real drifty analog sound, you can dial up analog and drift. And we'll start to hear some of those pitch instabilities come out. I think it's very effective, actually. It's mostly subtle, as real analog drift is. But also these controls apply to samples, which is super interesting. I don't find the effect quite as convincing as, say, in Korg multipoly or multipoly native, which I think is the current king or queen of this kind of analog drift modeling. But it's a really welcome addition to the synth, and it works really well. Okay, so you've got your basic waveform controls, right? So for this kind of patch, I'm going to have this layer like tuned down to 7 cents, right? And then my other layer, I'm going to tune up 7 cents. And we can control where we are in the wavetable by using the shape parameter. So shape is basically wavetable scan. There's also a symmetry control, which can give you all sorts of different effects, and all these are modulatable. And you can even do a hard sync effect. This is very similar to like a Korg modwave. The oscillators, by the way, do sound really great. Oops. Now I'm rating things instead of selecting them. I just want to undo my changes. Come back. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch of other things you can do. So of course it's got a unison mode, and unison is pretty well specified. It's not crazy ass unison like you would see in Serum or Serum 2. It's a little more like a classic synthesizer unison mode, where depth controls the number of unison voices that we're going to get, and I think it goes as high as 8. And then you've got a spread parameter, right, to make them different, spread them out in the stereo field. You've got detune on them, which I've got tastefully selected right here. And then again, you've got the analog parameter and the drift parameter. Another big improvement that I know a lot of people I think complain about in previous versions of Omnisphere was that the phases of these things were always, I think they were always aligned. And so that could lead to situations where you've kind of got undesirable frequency boosting, right? So this is a much better specified unison engine than we had before. And it sounds great, and it's got, you know, those kind of drift parameters in it that I think people sort of expect now. And it sounds really pretty. So what I basically did with this patch is, you know, copied this layer that's like my -7 cents layer, even though I already have detuning, right? So I've already got unison detune. I copied it over to layer B. And so in layer B, we have the same waveform being modulated in the same way. We had, well, it was set up before I like tweaked it. It had, you know, a 2-voice unison detune. But then there's other parameters here. So we can do FM on a voice. And let me turn it on. This is a thing I would never actually do, but there is FM, there is a ring modulator, and again, as you dive into these different sections, like they reveal all their parameters, right? So that's kind of the concept of Zoom. Let's turn ring modulation on, shall we? And you can see that the ring shape like changes the shape of the modulator. We can affect its symmetry, and there's even sync here. So there's all sorts of effects that you can get from very simple waveforms, including starting with a simple sine wave. There is a new frequency shifter. I'm not really going to show that today, but that's new. And all these things can be on at the same time. That's kind of cool, though. And everything can be modulated. Turn that back off. There's a wave shaper, and there is also a granular mode. We'll look at the granular patch in a little bit. So, okay, that took a long time, right? And that's just kind of the core oscillator things we have to work with. There is also, of course, a filter. And in this case, I'm going to undo my changes again. In this case, I'm using the new OB, which is the Oberheim emulation, low-pass filter with 2 poles, so a 12 dB filter, and they sound really good, actually. Now, I don't like this filter quite as much as the SEMP filter in Korg Multipoly, but it's not bad. There's also some new things like a saturation mode. There's analog modeled saturation, so you can kind of overdrive into the filter, which sounds really nice. And I do have that on a little bit here on both of these layers. Now, when we dive into the filter section, as you look at it here, you'd be like, oh, okay, there's a single filter right there. But that's not actually the case. When we dive into it, we see that there's actually 2 filters on each layer that can be configured in series or in parallel. So, you know, if I wanted to, now we actually have a 4-pole version of that OB filter, but let's say that I just wanted to do, you know, kind of stack 2 2-pole filters to make a 4-pole filter. I could do that. And I can change their offsets with respect to each other for all sorts of different effects, right? That's pretty cool. And same thing with resonance. I can offset their resonance with respect to each other. And of course, you got mixing. You've got pre and post gain. I think those are new. And then there's a slider called variant. And so I don't know if we can hear it. Let's turn off filter 2. Let's turn off layer A, and let's just dive in. So the variant offset, if you're listening in stereo, you'll hear that as I move variant offset, it sounds like there's a panning effect going on, and there is. But what's happening is that the cutoff of the filter is being modulated differently on the left and the right. So these are, in fact, stereo filters. There's all sorts of kind of weird effects that you can get there, and I'm sure that this is demonstrated quite a lot in the factory patches. I guess this would be a good opportunity to maybe just show modulation. So to do modulation, you can just right-click on a control, and let's say modulate with LFO. And now what this is going to do is it's going to grab my first unused LFO. There are 6 LFOs for each actually, there's 6 LFOs that are shared by the layers, I believe, even if you were in independent mode. We'll talk about that in a second. Don't let me forget to talk about independent versus shared. So let's go and like modulate the variant offset here. So you can see that we've got our LFO down here. It has all sorts of different shapes. So sine, triangle, square, rounded square saw, reverse saw, sample and hold, heartbeat, and then a random one. Let's stick with our sine wave. They can be free running, or they can restart on each note. They can have legato control, or they can be controlled by song position, which is useful for certain BPM patches like that intro patch. All right, and so then let's move our control target down like this, and then we'll move the source up. This is the modulation amount, and so now you'll see, and here I hope that we're getting this panning effect from left to right. And I realize I'm probably doing this in the wrong direction. We can change its rate. We can change its depth. So another trick that we might do, now we've got no depth, so it's not moving at all. If we wanted this to be controlled, for example, by mod wheel, we could modulate the depth parameter with the mod wheel. So we'll select with mod wheel here. And now you hear that I'm turning my mod wheel up. It's not represented in the little diagram there. That would be nice, wouldn't it? We can turn the source all the way up. And now, as I move my mod wheel, we're getting that weird filter panning effect. It's a very interesting and unique effect to Omnisphere in Omnisphere 3. Okay, I'm going to reset my patch. So that's filter zoom, right? You can, and there's no dearth of filters. Now, the new filters are awesome, and they're the ones that are featured. So there's a new set of low-pass filters, a new set of high-pass filters, new set of band-pass filters, and then new specialty, which includes an all-pass if you want to do physical modeling sort of stuff. There's an all-pass, there's a notch, there's an emulation of the state variable Oberheim filter. This one has a little bit different behavior with from the variant that we were looking at just now. Here, the variant actually moves the filter shape from like a low pass through notch to a high pass. I think, or is it from low pass to high pass to notch? Anyway, variant is where you change the behavior of the state variable filter. And I think this is not in the documentation yet. Just minor little quibble. But hey, the documentation is great, by the way. And it's online. So there's a little link that you can just hit in Omnisphere, and it takes you right there. And I find it very useful to have this up as I am rediscovering Omnisphere. It's, like an old friend. It's like, hey, what have you been up to? Oh, you're different. All right. So, we've talked about like the basic sound sources. We've talked about Zoom a little bit. We looked at the filter architecture. Along the way, we looked at the LFOs. As I said, Omnisphere 3 is an opinionated synth, which in my vocabulary, that's the opposite of a modular synth. Now, there are elements of modularity here. Like you can see that like all of the modifiers that we have for the waveform, right? These are all, these are essentially modular, right? We have to turn them on and then they're part of our patch. But this is not, this doesn't look or behave like phase plant, in which we would kind of, build up an entire synthesizer architecture, which personally I don't like. I prefer my synths to be opinionated. And so that's what we see here. So along those lines, there are dedicated envelopes for the amp and the filter, and then there are 4 modulation envelopes. And we'll look at those in a second, but I've been yapping at you for like so long that it's time to take a break again, isn't it? Did I mention I find this awesome? I think this is an awesome synthesizer. Okay, so we looked at layer A. I took layer A and then basically just copied it, again, by like right-clicking here and doing copy layer. And then I went to B and I pasted my layer and made some changes to it. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to mess up my settings. Like layer A, we've got a synth oscillator. It's the same JP8000 Super Saw based sawtooth wave. Same filter configuration. And the same unison configuration where we basically got like 2 voices. So we've got 4 oscillators now at current count, right? With a nice rich sound. I might increase my drift a little bit. Let's just do that. Just for kicks. Let's go back to the waveform. Let's set analog above 40% so that we actually get pitch drift. That's a little fatter now. And now there's a section we haven't talked about yet. It's called harmonia. And so harmonia is another approach to unison. And so when you turn harmonia on, you actually get 4 oscillators that you can detune both coarsely and finely with respect to each other. And not only that, but we can actually change the waveforms. So you'll see that we've added an oscillator up at 12 semitones, so an octave above our core oscillator, which is called OSC. And it also even has a different wavetable selected. So we've got one of the digital wavetables. It's called Spectrum over here. And so that's adding another dimension to the sound. You've also got different modes for phase here. So you can have these things be in phase or wildly out of phase. Ooh. Right? And then you can independently change the shape of them. So that's selecting different positions in the waveform. You've also got the symmetry control. And you can even do sync on them. We can't really hear it here. Can we turn this guy up? You can hear it a little bit there. Wow. And we could even pick a different wavetable here. What about, I don't know. So what do we have here now? So on layer A, we've got we've got 2 oscillators. On layer B, we've got unison on, and we've got harmonia on. So we have 8 oscillators over here in B. So you can do these incredibly rich sounds, and gain staging does become important when you start doing this. But there's more oscillators here than meet the eye, is my point about talking about that. I want to talk about some of the other filter types. So this patch, right, uses the Oberheim style filters, but there are some new Jupiter models. There's a bunch of different models. And if this doesn't put you in the mind of Thomas Dolby, I don't know what will. Very, very nice, squirty sounding Roland style filter. And I turned the effects off so that you can really hear it. I think they've done a great job of capturing that character. real squirty. I don't know how else to describe the sound of Roland filters. And and there's other models as well. So, and these are just the new ones. Now, I did want to compare, because I remembered Omnisphere 2 is not having like incredibly compelling filters. Like, even though these all of these different advanced features, like serial and parallel routing of two filters when you dig under the hood, and the variant offset stuff, I remembered them as being not just utilitarian and not particularly characterful. So I took this same patch and changed it to the legacy filters. So let's zoom out. All right. So this is one called Dual Juicy LPF 24 dB. Oops. And this is one thing about the interface. I do commonly find myself accidentally, like, when I either right click or click something, I will commonly click on save. And I wish that would go away. Like, it would be nice if maybe those were at the bottom. I don't know. Because typically I'm not trying to save a preset for the filter section or whatever other section. It's nice that that's there. That's like a super feature. You can build up your own library of like custom filters, custom modulations, whatever you want, and you can save them. However, I'm commonly clicking the wrong thing. So this is from the Legacy collection. And so you see under low pass, there was no, sorry, I know this is behind my head a little bit. There was no dearth of different filters, including the original ones from when Omnisphere 1 was powered by UVI's sample engine. But there's a ton of stuff here. And also, just because things are in the Legacy collection doesn't mean that they're deprecated, because there's a whole bunch of really interesting, I think it's behind my head. There's a whole bunch of interesting things, like a metal pipe, there's resonant kind of filters. God, what else? There was one other, there's a formant filter that's, I think maybe the same one from Delay Llama. Very, very interesting. And bandpass and all pass. You can do physical modeling type stuff inside of Omnisphere. Don't ignore the Legacy filter collection. But we want to compare the sound. So this is this swimmy saw patch with the old kind of juicy filter. And it's sort of juicy, but, and this may be a flavor that you want, right? Sometimes you don't want so much juice. But you compare that to the new Omnisphere 3 filters. These are much more characterful, even though my gain's a little different there. Loud things sound better. You know about that psychoacoustic effect, right? I guess we could try to fix this. We could go in and we could maybe change our post-filter gain a little bit. So that we're being more fair. Okay, but even louder, there's not as much juice as in the new ones, Jupiter saws. Yeah, I mean, things are just, it already sounded great in version 2, sounds even better in version 3. A lot of different things we could do with a patch like this. Effects are a huge part of Omnisphere, always have been. And there are a bunch of new effects in Omnisphere 3. Excuse me, I've got OBS and Bitwig and a bunch of other stuff running, and so we were hearing a little bit of dropout there. But overall, actually, Omnisphere is a pretty reasonable on CPU synth. But of course, things get complicated as we get more effects going. Let's go look at our effects rack. Now, effects in Omnisphere are incredibly well specified. So not only are there a bunch of new effects and kind of re-envisioned effects, there's also the entire library of the old effects that's there for you, but they're super interesting and very creative and really focused on sound design. And so you've what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've got 6 racks for effects, which depending upon how powerful your CPU is, you could fill with entirely different effect modules. The most common place that we would add effects is in the common area. And so after we've got all of our layers, and in this variation on my patch, I've got layers A, B, and C. C has a different wavetable oscillator with a different harmonia thing going on in it. Like the sum of that signal goes into the effects rack. And so we'll turn some of these off. I've always liked the interface for these effects. It's nice and simple, and we'll dig into it a little bit. Like, so here's with our effects off. Let's turn everybody off. Okay, and so we've got an analog chorus. I mean, that sounds sweet, right? And then all the effects, they typically have, this one doesn't have it, but they typically have like a more button. So there's a couple of controls right up front, like this one that would make things mono. There's our stereo version. We've got rate and depth, but then often the effects tracks will have a button around here that reveals some deeper parameters. And then there are presets that are over here. Oops, and see, there I did the thing where I hit the save button. But if we click this, if you click it, Keith, I do think this is a problem. If you click it and don't accidentally click Save Effects Preset, you'll see all these presets over here. So here's classic 80s chorus. That might be what we were on. We've probably got some wilder ones in here. Slow and heavy. What would be? Oh, Vintagizer. So that's like warm and mono. And then I've always loved this effect. There's chorus echo, which is a chorus plus a delay. I mean, listen to that. It's just so nice. So yeah, we've got all that detuning. We've got all of that unison going on. We've got like 2 choruses going on, and it's sounding pretty great. Here's what I mean, where there's a second page with other parameters. I kind of like the dirt parameter here. We can change our tone. And then there's really creative things, like inner space is it's turned all the way down here. Inner space is a convolution effect. But it has all these like really interesting impulses. It's not just for reverbs. It has these kind of psychoacoustic parameters in it. Impulse responses. Like I like Coin Dropper quite a bit. Like it really scatters the signal in kind of interesting ways. And then there's some great reverbs. There's a bunch of new reverbs. Not that the old ones were any slouch. So we used to only have the proverb, which I think might be a joke on proverb. We might talk about that a little bit. Then the easy verb, which is a low CPU reverb. There was also always a spring reverb. That I very much like the sound of. I think it really does sound like a spring reverb to me. And it's got a width control. So if you wanted to go really old school, you can go really old school. There's a whole bunch of new like lo-fi effects, which I find really cool. Okay, so there's a spring. I guess it's kind of new and improved. But then there's so superverb is I don't know. It's I don't know if it's probably convolution based because it has these kinds of settings here. Expensive Hall. Let's turn our mix down a little bit there. Right? So that it's a great sounding reverb. There's one called Velvet. Let's hear maybe a couple of its presets. Oh, see, there's the same thing again. I told you you would see this. I'm a dum-dum. That's what happens. Slapback wall. Yeah, we can't hear the effect of that unless we have our mix down. Here we go. Well, now there's a lot of delay and slapback going on, huh? Anyway, there are really cool effects, and in Omnisphere 3, there's a separate effects plugin that lets you use all these effects. Okay, a little more history. So I am pretty sure that a lot of the original effects from Omnisphere and Omnisphere 2 were developed by the same people who are known as Nomad Factory, because there are some plugins from Nomad Factory that are very similar in design to the original Omnisphere effects and do have that same sound, as far as I can tell. And I think it was just one of the principals that's involved with Nomad Factory worked on those effects. And so if you wanted to match the effects from, say, an Omnisphere track with like something else, like you're like, oh, I want this exact same, like, vocal delay or something, or I want that same room reverb on my vocal, like you would have to go to a third party like Nomad Factory to get something that is very close to what the Omnisphere effect sounds like. But now you can just insert the Omnisphere effects rack on any track, and you can even use them live, which is super cool. So that's great. There's a little overview of effects. It's so many cool things. Actually, maybe we should jump to a factory preset. Oops, I don't want to do that. Let's jump to like a factory preset to hear one of them. There are some very interesting new lo-fi effects in Omnisphere 3 that are used in very clever ways inside of the new factory patches, like this one. So this one's called Cinema Milan Mandolin. You hear that cool noise that's in there? It sounds like a film projector. Well, it's coming from this new plugin called Noisemaker. I think this is really cute and clever. I mean, how like you want to use that sound like immediately in some kind of like lo-fi trip hop track, right? Well, if you're me, I guess. And also, if you're me, you might want to turn on your own reverb, huh? Liminal space, right? Let's see. Let's get rid of Omnisphere for a second, because this is the kind of lo-fi sound that like liminal space is gonna like just chew up all day. We could even pick cassette or VHS. Let's do VHS. Now we got warbles inside of our Omnisphere sound and extraneous noise, and we've got warbles and a little bit of, is there deres? Yeah, a little bit of like deresolution on this. Beautiful. Nifty, as I like to say. Nifty. Let's shut you off. We'll shut you off. Anyway, the effects play well with others. Okay, we will look at a couple of factory patches. I mean, there are tens of thousands of factory patches. They're all inspirational. I want to like look at a couple things that I thought were like super interesting. And then maybe I guess we'll wrap. I've been going for a long time now, huh? How long? How long? Ooh, this segment is like almost 20 minutes long. And I have to review my notes and see if I forgot anything. Hey, like and subscribe for more Talky synthesizer content. I'll be right back. Okay, and I'm back. Um, what should we look at next? I want to do a little more synth architecture stuff because there is a granular engine we haven't talked about, and there's also the capability of well, you can't import your own wavetables. You can import individual sounds. Now, they're not going to be multi-samples, but let's look at this patch. This is built out of a couple of samples from my Varieties of Noise sample library, which is part of KRC Mathwaves. It's like a cool little bonus that you get for KRC Mathwaves. KRC Mathwaves is 29 bucks at www.wavetables.lol. Let's see, do I have my Varieties of Noise library up? Yeah, so Varieties of Noise is a sample library that has all sorts of different noises and manipulated noises, including this thing called Enigma. There's these 5 Enigma samples, and they're perfectly looped so that they work great in things like Omnisphere. And you can import user audio. Now there is a little bug. Oh, how do we get to import user audio? Whoops. Oh, I just made Omnisphere go away. Let's close the browser. Do we right click? And yeah, if we right click and go to user audio, that's the easiest way to get there. You'll see that. Let me dismiss this real quick. So you'll see we have this area where you can drag and drop audio files to this, but I do find on Windows right now this isn't working. This used to work in Omnisphere 2. Let's say I wanted to take this SQ80 breath sample, and you're just supposed to be able to drag it in, and you probably can't see the icon, but it turns to a little plus sign. But I find that hosted in Bitwig, I always get the error message that this error does not support. This location only supports dropping Omnisphere files. Audio files may be dropped in the user audio region of the sound source browser, but this is the user audio region of the sound source browser. Never fear, because you can just click it and then you can go to a directory and you can select a sample. So like we could do what's DNA Discord loop. Oh, and see it's successfully imported. And I think it will replace, yeah. So it replaced that Enigma sample. So anyway, Varieties of Noise is just all these different noises. They're sourced from a huge variety of synthesizers, and very much inspired by some of the psychoacoustic sampling that was in Omnisphere. So thanks, Eric, for the cool ideas. But you can use samples like this inside of Omnisphere, and you can expand your sound sources. So let's actually let's reload that. So this patch has like 2 layers of user imported waveforms, A and B. So we've got Enigma 1 loop over here in B, we've got Enigma 3 loop over in A, and they're both being affected by the Granular engine. And so there is a really cool granular playback engine that has all sorts of different parameters. I mean, you can go read the manual, right? But they can glide up or they can glide down. There's a wild mode to make things even crazier. That's neat. And we're using that on both of these layers. And of course, you can also have all the other effects on. So like if we wanted this to be in unison, oh, maybe we can't do unison on samples? I thought you could, but maybe not, because I don't see anything in the interface. Can we do harmonia? I'm not sure. Surely we must. Let's try to play our beat. Well, that's pan. That was working. Oh, yeah. Ooh, spoopy. That would be fun. Let's do a spooky season sound where we modulate this with an LFO. Let's change it to be bipolar. Yeah. Hey. Oh boy, that's getting crazy. So like Omnisphere is just this like really amazing kind of sound design playground, and you can create straight ahead things like we were just doing like an OB sounding patch, or we can do these like crazy soundscapes. We didn't really get to envelopes yet, but let's go to this variation on the Enigma patch. Now, let's hear it again real quick. Okay, so there's my original version of the patch, but now let's go to Enigma's Complex, and this is rather different. Same sound sources, but very different modulations. That's a little harsh up there. And all sorts of different effects. Now, what's going on here is primarily that our amplitude envelopes on layer A and B are very complex. Let's just solo layer A, and then I'll show you what's happening. If we zoom in on the amp envelope section, so envelopes do not in Omnisphere just have to be like your standard ADSR with curves. They can be rhythmic. And so in this case, I did it again. There's a rhythmic envelope on this guy. I think it's from the Rhythmic collection. Or is it from Complex? It's called, this is Bouncing Ball. Yeah, so this is Bouncing Ball. You'd hear it speeds up over time. And it just does these little spikes. And then over in layer B, let's solo it. It's this rhythm. Now, another thing that you're supposed to be able to do here is you can, again, I think this is Windows only, and maybe, I'm thinking this has to be when it's hosted maybe in Bitwig, or similar environments. The drag and drop is not working, so you should be able to take like a MIDI file. This one is like kind of a 4 on the floor kick drum thing. You're supposed to be able to drag it into here, but again, we're going to get that this like the drag isn't supported here. It probably works in standalone. I can't imagine they actually didn't notice that. I'm sure that'll get fixed, but anyway, it doesn't work right now. So I couldn't actually find a way to import a MIDI file as the envelope, but that's a really neat feature. And people used to use this a lot with Stylus RMX. So you'd have like a kind of groove going in Stylus RMX, and you could just drag and drop the MIDI for that pattern into the envelopes, and then your envelope has the same groove as your drum groove. But anyway, it's pretty neat that the envelopes can get crazy like that. And there's even more we could drill down into, like the chaos effect. The envelopes can loop like I'm doing here. They can sync to BPM, which they're doing here. And then I have some other effects on this. So we've got Noisemaker again, which is really cool. We're using Analog Studio, which is one of the color effects. You've got all these different kinds of sort of warmers and console emulation types of things, tape emulations that sound very good. There's a new shimmer reverb that's in here. I guess let's turn off Thrift Shop real quick. So this is what this sounds like without the shimmer. You can hear the noise coming from Noisemaker. You can probably hear the coloration that's coming from, let's go up a couple octaves. We can increase the saturation on the tape machine plugin here, Analog Studio. We can overdrive it if we want to. It's pretty cool. But here's the shimmer reverb. Now I've got weird face on because this is a weird sound. I love this thrift shop plugin, which is, I think this is again a convolution type of effect, but it has a different set of impulse responses that are like shitty. And you know, I like music that sounds like shit, so I like to make a sound that sounds kind of shitty. Very small speaker 3. I will watch. So you can have big sounds, you can have degraded small sounds. Lots of different things are just so much fun. And I'm hung up. Lots of things are so much fun in Omnisphere. Okay, this is going to be a super long video, so I just, you know, it would take forever, and there's a ton of other videos that are like going through the factory library and showing you all the stuff, but let's just go to like a few of my favorites that I tagged as I have been going through Omnisphere. It's almost, you know, it's almost hard to focus when you're using Omnisphere because you can go down these rabbit holes of deep sound design, or you can just, you know, preset surf, and like so much is inspirational. One thing I always really liked in let's get out of zoom mode here. In the original Omnisphere libraries was there's this very unique sample of a baritone guitar. It's very evocative. And this one has glissando on very hard velocity hits. Hold on, I gotta adjust my velocity. Let's get a velocity curve that's more like this. It's so great. So while you can't build these yourself, the multi-samples that are in Omnisphere are like advanced sample libraries. So some of them have round robin, actually a lot of them have round robin, and others have effects like this, like the little caret here denotes that this sound source for this baritone guitar has an effect on velocity. And it's a bend up. It's just a beautiful sound. There's some effecty stuff. This might have been in an original Omnisphere as well, but this is a choir that that has a shepherd tone illusion on it, and so it will apparently rise in pitch forever, and then it gets rhythmic as we move the mod wheel up. Here's a chord. I mean, this engine is capable of amazing things. We heard the Cinema Mandolin. It's worth listening to again. Pretty. We went through Hoovers before, didn't we? There's a shit ton of Hoovers. Harmonia is used in this patch, I'm pretty sure. Oh, actually, it's not using Harmonia. But this, it's 2 chordal sound sources. So there's a sus chord and a minor chord. The vocal samples in Omnisphere were amazing. And I did want to talk about iconic sounds. And there are sounds that have become insanely overused from Omnisphere over the years. You have heard this sound, Rusty Spoke, in a million Discovery Channel documentaries, there's all sorts of risers and transitions like this, but some of them have been reimagined, like good old Rusty Spoke. Here's Rusty Spoke is back, and it's got some different modulation on the mod wheel. I mean, it's still a cool sound, right? You can see why film composers use this, because the tension is rising, my friends. Things are going to get crazy. Oh no. What's going to happen? Ah! You know, I mean, that kind of stuff is fun. There's just amazing stuff. And like, it's hard to believe, but it's like almost every single patch in Omnisphere demonstrates some different technique that you could apply in your own patches, which does take us to mutations, I guess. And then I'll probably shut up. So, you know, we took that OB patch. So we had the original OB Saws 1. And then over here in main, there is that where it is? Wait a minute. Have I lost my way? Where is mutate? Hold on. Where is mutate? Where do I find mutate? Well, this is a mutated version of the OB Saws patch that was the second patch I think I demoed. And mutation. Why am I not seeing mutation? Oh man, am I gonna have to edit this part out? Oh yeah, it's down here in the sound browser. Okay, so if we take this patch and mutate it, we can hit this little button down here. Note that there is a little fly out, so you can do default or extreme. Okay, and if we hit mutate, what's going to happen is this is going to generate a different version of this patch, where things are generally sort of subtle and tasteful, but you might come up with new variations on a patch that you hadn't thought of. So see, this selected some new synth oscillators for me. I'm not sure what else it changed. And we could further mutate from there. Let's maybe make the mode wild, extreme, I guess it's called here. Oh, see now it went to like sampled oscillators. Did it change my effects? Maybe. It probably changed some of the parameters, I'll tell you that. And you can just kind of keep doing this all day. Let's go to that weird ass my category. Name your things right, Keith. Let's go back to enigmas. Right? And let's do some mutations on that. Let's do extreme, mutate. What did we get? Interesting. And it saves all of your mutations, and they're saved by date as a new category. Oh! Whoa. Wild. Well, there's like a new song right there, right? I mean, maybe that amp envelope is too long, but we could change that. Let's change our amp envelopes. Pretty cool. I want to do it again. Do it again. Do it again, Keith. Well, that's just freaking wild. Anyway, that's a great new feature. You know, I feel like I'm out of time. It's going to take me forever to like edit this video. Anyway, Omnisphere 3. In conclusion, if you're an Omnisphere user, you will want to upgrade to Omnisphere 3. Is there any pressure to do that? No, because Spectrasonics is very good with their price integrity, and the Spectrasonics products don't don't really go on special. So the upgrade path is just like, hey, if you owned Omnisphere before, or if you owned Atmosphere, there are upgrade paths for you. So it's $199 to upgrade from earlier versions of Omnisphere, either 1 or 2 or 2.5. And then it's $249 to upgrade from the original Atmosphere. Now, for new users, does it make sense? Is it worth $479? Like I said before, I think it is. There's not like an intro price, really, so to speak. So I guess you could get it at any time. But this is a wonderful sound design environment, and a great sample library. It's, you got chocolate in my peanut butter. You got peanut butter on my chocolate. It's two great tastes that taste great together. And I highly recommend it. And I am having a lot of fun rediscovering the joy of Omnisphere. I kind of want to change my effects here. Let's turn off inversions. Let's replace this with like a more of a normal reverb, shall we? Shimmer. And let's turn our mix down. See what happens with Omnisphere? It's just like, ooh, pretty. On that majestic note, it's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol. Hey, go get KRC Mathwaves, which gives you like 160,000 plus wavetables, which unfortunately you can't import into Omnisphere 3, but also the varieties of noise sample library, which you can use with Omnisphere 3. I have a bunch of other products, including my liminal space reverb plugin, the Haunted Digital Reverb. That's perfect for spooky season. Go and get it. Everything is at wavetables.lol. Like and subscribe for more Talky synthesizer content, and I will talk to you later.